Sign him up.
Sign
He's
him up.
probably still got college eligibility.
Maybe. My hairline says differently, but I probably got some out there. And really, the preview is going to centralize around questions. What are the questions that we are all entering with? Some obvious, maybe not obvious. I don't know what Austin's thinking about for Auburn football and their spring practice. So I'm going to go ahead and give us one, Austin, just start off right at the top. You know exactly where I'm going. And for this season, unlike last year, we have a true quarterback question or battle. Now, I say that acknowledging the collective body of Auburn people or just people who follow college football. Most people are expecting Jackson Arnold to be the starter this year as of this moment. However, no starting quarterback has been named. Coach Freeze has always said that he views depth charts as more of a fluid thing. Do that with what you will. But the reality is this spring you will see Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight competing for that job.
Well, I mean, I think I'm in agreement with the mass that it's probably Jackson Arnold. I think that's when you look at the way transfer portal and transfer quarterbacks work. When you bring in a guy like that and a guy of that caliber, you don't give anything free handedly away. But it's kind of assumed he's got the upper leg until we step on the field, right? And then we see what happens. So I think that's fair. I think that's probably what the game plan is as we start spring practice. Now, look, injuries happen. Guys outperform. Deuce Knight could come in and be the next stud true freshman quarterback in college football landscape. So we'll have to see. But I mean, I think it's probably safe to assume right now that Jackson Arnold is your QB1 per se to start spring camp, but it's certainly going to give the coaches a chance to see Deuce Knight up close and personal, see Jackson Arnold up close and personal. A lot of people believe this offense is what can kind of totally unlock his potential. Had bright spots at Oklahoma, obviously a highly recruited kid coming out of high school. So they'll get to see all that kind of for the first time when you strap the pads on, shells on, shorts, whatever you want to do, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I think obviously most people are walking into this thing with a preconceived notion about the quarterback battle, and it's not necessarily inherently wrong to do that. I always like to give the benefit of the doubt because I'm not dismissing anybody from this race, but the logic would tell you we're looking at a 2-horse race at this point. The reality is we'll just get to see. People are excited about Deuce Knight. People are excited about Jackson Arnold. Who's the best fit for Auburn this current year? We'll find out, and we'll find out if maybe we're talking about another true freshman quarterback starting off, which would be a pretty wild story to kick off the college football year with enough cool storylines to go around with. We've already talked about the change of time and date for Baylor and Auburn matchup and things like that. But Jackson Arnold looks like the guy at this moment. Do you have another question or storyline or whatever you're thinking about as we go into spring practice?
Yeah, I mean, mine's kind of not as much of a question, but an intrigue thing for me. The first time in a while that they've had both coordinators stay on staff
Yes.
for Auburn and a little bit of continuity there. I'm interested to see how that goes. I think keeping DJ Durkin, we talked about that a few episodes ago, is a really big move for Auburn. Definitely people that wanted him and has seen the success he's had. To be able to keep him and coming off such a successful year, bringing more guys in, the guys that are still here, understanding what he wants to do a little bit more. How much better can that defense get? I think that'll be really intriguing to see. And then, my only other question is, as similar to quarterback as a personnel issue is running back. I think you got a lot of possible changes coming there. You don't have Jarquez Hunter, the bell cow, the stud that's been there for a few years now. How will this team kind of use the running back position? Will somebody take over and just assume that role? Will it be born by committee? I'm interested in your thoughts on the running back situation.
Yeah. I was thinking about it here as you were talking about it, so I'm glad you asked. I actually been very not exciting thinking about this. I think it's as simple as it's succession. I think it's Damari's job to lose. I think Jeremiah Cobb moves into the role that Damari held last year, increased time usage, and we continue to see how he's developing as a a NCAA running back in all facets, not just a certain skill set. And then you look beyond that, you brought the one in from UConn that looks to be a little bit maybe more of a bruiser type, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's the excitingness of Alvin Henderson and what he accomplished at the high school level. I don't necessarily see him as someone who's going to see a ton of amazing playing time to start this year, but I could be wrong. But I think it's as simple as that, Austin. I think it's just Damari, Jeremiah, kind of the technical 1 and 2 tandem, but either one of them could run out there. But that's the way, if I'm making decisions, it goes. It certainly can change throughout the year. Auburn has no lack of talent, though, at this particular position. So if you're worried, yes, you lost Jarquez, and we all know how important he was to Auburn over these last few years. Probably will go down as one of the more underutilized, underappreciated running backs that Auburn has ever had, alongside, I would say, even Tank Bigsby. But I'm not worried about this room in the slightest. I sound like a broken record here, Austin, but it's really what leads the running game that is always going to be the concern for me more than anything. And that's the offensive line. But I'm excited about the running back room.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for me to see. I think, you could go a number of ways too with this. The wide receiver room has been revamped. You still have Cam Coleman and the freshman that did so well last year. You've added a veteran, absolute workhorse in Eric Singleton. I think that's just a big, if we're looking at the overall 30,000 foot view question, which is probably every year in college football these days, how do all the new pieces fit, right? Like, how do you get these guys who are experienced and then these high level freshmen, how do you get them all to fit to get where you want? So we'll have to see. That's the biggest question every year for all these staffs, and how do you keep them as well? But spring practice is where you start learning all that. So it's hard to believe we're already back in spring practice for college football. I mean, it truly is a 365-day sport.
It is. And I'm glad you brought up the wide receivers, because I think that's where a lot of people's focus is right now. Certainly you look at Cam Coleman as ready maybe to take over a lead role in that room in a sense. You are bringing in Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech, and a lot of people are equating that to Keandre Lambert-Smith. Folks, let me just tell you, let the guys get here before we start building them up. Give them some time. Even Cam needed a few games to get going. A lot of other people are asking, will we see Perry Thompson more? We know that we're going to see Malcolm Simmons. But I think that's probably, if you want to talk about a big question, where does Perry Thompson, guys like him, Bryce Kane, that we didn't get to see as much last year, that were highly thought of, highly regarded coming out of high school, how do they factor in to this room where everybody's assuming Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, and Malcolm Simmons? And then you got like Horatio Fields come in.
Yep.
There's so many aspects of this wide receiver room that are question mark areas about how it gets filled out, things like that I know a lot of people are thinking about. Do you have any questions on the defensive side of the ball, or storylines or things you're paying attention to?
I don't think from like a personnel standpoint or from a specific standpoint. I think people were surprised by the defensive line last year. I think a lot of that looked like it would be a weak spot for Auburn. It wasn't. I don't think it was their brightest spot, but I think they certainly grew. And a new defense and a new kind of scheme help set under DJ Durkin. You mentioned the offensive line. The defensive line is just as important to me. And in this, especially, you have to have those things at least serviceable if you're going to have any success in this league and throughout the whole season. So those are always big questions for me. I think as we get into spring and hear about maybe who's doing well, who's not, and what kind of who's getting certain reps and who's not, we'll have more to talk about. But it's certainly, there's a lot of questions, but at the same time, like I talked about with the coordinators, it feels like there's a little more continuity, but also kind of clarity going into this offseason. That's certainly a big offseason for Auburn football.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about the defense too, I started trying to write down questions, and there are some. What does the defensive line look like is probably the biggest question there. I think another one you could have is like, who's going to be the leader at linebacker? I think DeMarcus Reddick obviously is an easy name to go to there, but you're losing Eugene Asante, you're losing Austin Keys, you're losing like several others that I'm just blanking on their names at this point right now. And then that a lot of times is your quarterbacks to the defense. So I feel less insecure about some of the questions about on the defensive side, And I think that's why I don't have as many like clear ones out there other than who's just the guy that's going to step up as the leader this year. I think that's my biggest thing that I wrote down for myself about the defense. A lot of them are related to the offense. And I think that's going to be reflective in a lot of Auburn fans out there. The final one, and probably the biggest battle that we have, special teams. Who's going to be the kicker? We've got like 5 kickers, man. I mean, how do you think this is going to shake out?
Yeah, I truthfully, and not because I have anything against other guy, I hope Alex McPherson is able to come back. Just from an off the field standpoint, with all he's had to go through and health issues, I hope he's healthy enough to come back and retake that spot for Auburn. I hope that's someone who can kind of reclaim where he's been from a personal standpoint, but also he was a pretty daggum good kicker for Auburn when he was fully healthy.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have him. I'd love for Towns Magoo to continue to build up his confidence and get ready to maybe take over for Alex. And then who was the
Ian Vachon, and then Gibbs, I think is his last name from that just came in. Connor Gibbs. So if you want to look at about a position battle, that's probably what's going on. And frankly, some of that's out of even people's control because Alex can't help a health issue that he's been dealing with. Certainly we've talked about Towns and some of the struggles that he's had in year one being just thrust into that role, but you really do have a 4-way battle. It seems like maybe even more. I don't know. I've never feel like I've ever talked about a kicker battle in spring, but we might actually get one. Like it's just wild to think about. And as a former kicker, I'm actually kind of thrilled about this, to be honest with you. So
we'll make sure we come back to you for all your insight and intel into the kicker battle.
I was the only one that was 100% in high school ever. 1 for 1, baby.
Sign him up. He's probably still got college eligibility.
Maybe. My hairline says differently, but I probably got some out there. Anyway, so those are some questions that we have. Love to hear that y'all have. Certainly, we'll be getting more and more updates about the schedule for spring as time goes on. But we wanted to go ahead and get those questions and thought process out there to start off before spring practice gets rolling.